Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Doggo Box, as it's now been named by my friend G. I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. I had an amazing one actually. I don't normally work at weekends, apart from once a month I do the Clan Chieftain Crusade, which is like a big adventure day. Hi Karen! But this weekend, on Saturday, I was at an amazing workshop ran by River MacDonald, who runs Edinburgh Dog Behaviour. And the workshop was called Think Like a Behaviourist, and it was just fascinating. I've been at other workshops of hers before, and she's just such an amazingly talented and knowledgeable lady. And I think everybody that was there just got so much from it. It was brilliant. And really excitingly, she has actually agreed to come on and do a live with us in a few weeks' time. So once we get the date set, I'll let you know, but that's definitely one that you don't want to miss. And then yesterday, I met the newest member of our clan, came for a play day, and his name is Neo, and he's a 15-month Labrador, and he is absolutely gorgeous. Hey Harriet, hi, how are you? So that was my weekend, and then I boarded my good pal Tweedy last night as well. Tweedy was the very first dog that I ever walked that wasn't my own, so he's on my logo and everything. He's got a very, very special place in my heart. So yeah, I've had an amazing weekend, so I hope you guys all have too. And I'm really, really excited about tonight's guest. I think I've been like a kid in the run up to Christmas because I blatantly can't believe my luck that I've managed to convince her to come on and talk to me. So as you all know, hopefully, tonight we are bringing Rachel Bean on. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to tell you all about Rachel Bean because I won't do her justice. So what I'll do is I'm going to try to bring her on, and then she can introduce herself and tell you about her story and what she does. But just while I'm trying to sort that out, because you know what I'm like with technology, if you've watched any of these before, guys, please, if you're there, say hello, hit the likes and hit the loves, because if you do that, more people get to see it. And guys, if you've got any dog owning friends or family, please do. There's a share button on this post. Do share it with them, because yeah, they can watch it after the live, that's fine, you know, you can always go back and watch it, but if you're watching it live, you're actually going to get the opportunity to ask Rachel questions, and that's, you know, that's one in a million. You don't get that opportunity very often, so please do share it with your friends, start thinking of some questions for her, and I'm going to see if she's here first, actually, before I try to add it in. Bear with me. She's here, right, cool. Rachel, cool. So hopefully, hi Scott, hi Jennifer, hi Claire. Hopefully, Rachel's going to appear on the screen. Yeah, hi.
Hey. Yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Fabulous. We're doing far better than I was last week. Perfect. Can everybody else hear us? That's the question, guys. Guys listening, can you hear us? I'm going to take no news as good news. So, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really so excited that you've agreed to do it.
Welcome.
Do you want to just sort of like tell everybody a bit about yourself and what your sort of story is? Because it's fascinating. People are going to love it.
Yeah, sure. My first job was working actually for the Dogs Trust. I was persuaded by my lovely dear father to apply for not just the kennel maid's job when the new centre appeared near about 10 miles away from my dad's house, but also the assistant manager's role. And I got the assistant manager's role. So I was actually there from dog one of this new centre right up to full capacity, which was 150 dogs. So I was there for about 2 years, actually, just short of 2 years, before I decided to kind of move on and get some qualification.
Oh no!
So,
oh, that's fine.
Got it?
Yeah. For a second, but you're back.
I was interested in veterinary medicine, so I left to qualify as a veterinary nurse. So I started my training in '98, then I qualified in 2002. Yeah, so 3 years qualification, then kind of a year as a student nurse, if you like. Yeah, and then I've been in veterinary practice since since then, really, since 2002, since I've been qualified. And then about 8 years ago, I went self-employed, but I'm still locuming. Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. And so tell us about the first aid that you do as well, the Canine First Aid.
Yeah, I mean, the first aid, it started really probably about 10 years ago. I was asked to do some staff training for the local RSPCA branch close to me. And the staff really enjoyed it. And at that point, it was only just like a 2-hour practical, do some bandaging, that kind of thing. And then the manager of the RSPCA centre said, you should be doing more of this. So it kind of grew from that. And then I was really busy with the behaviour work, because I do a lot of behaviour work as well, kind of in my own little corner. And it kind of took off again about 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's just gone, yeah, it's gone mental. So
yeah. And you're the top lady, and so that's why I'm so excited to have you on, because guys, if you don't know, Rachel is like the top canine first aid trainer in the UK, in my opinion, and a lot of people as well. So that's amazing. That's kind of why I've brought you on today, because most of the people watching are dog owners. And I think like a lot of dog professionals go on canine first aid courses, but unfortunately I don't think as many owners sort of even know about it. I think a lot of people don't even know that it's a thing and that they can go on these courses. So we're hoping to kind of introduce people to a little bit about what it's about today, and maybe answer a few questions, and then hopefully that'll spark interest in people to maybe go away and actually attend one of your courses or another.
Sure.
So I guess the first question I've got is like, what's the most common accidents, do you think? What's the most common sort of occurrences that need canine first aid?
I think it's going to be accidents out on a walk, such as cut feet. I would say cut feet is probably the most commonest one. So we get anything from little tiny nicks that just maybe leave a little splodge of blood as the dog's walking, right up to full pad thickness, right through the tendons, you know, really nasty cuts. Yeah. So I would say it's probably the most common. Probably the most common. Yeah.
And because I get some of my clan, I sometimes get little messages from and little photos saying this has happened. Do you think is it a vet job? You know, what would be your advice in terms of at what sort of point, like in terms of the cut, is it something that maybe they should go and see the vet, and when is it something that they maybe could do it at home, do you think?
Yeah, it puts you in a very difficult position then, because if you said to them, oh, it doesn't need the vet, you've actually made a diagnosis. And that actually in breach of the Veterinary Surgeons Act. That's something I talk at length actually at my first aid courses, is how important the Veterinary Surgeons Act is, so that we can't be seen to be making any kind of definitive diagnosis. And if we're perceived to, and if it goes wrong, then you're actually leaving yourself wide open to be sued.
No, definitely. And that's like I usually say to them, go to the vets and just be on the safe side. And I think that's it, isn't it? Because because the thing is, I guess it's like humans as well. Like you can get a little cut, but it can get infected, so it might not even be that bad a cut to yourself, but you don't know when it can go wrong and stuff. So
that's it, because we get phone calls at work, and somebody might be really calm on the phone saying, oh, my dog's cut its foot, and I'll come down, I'll see it as a nurse appointment, come in, and there's buckets of blood everywhere. And then sometimes we get the opposite, where somebody says, oh, my dog's cut a little cut, and it's like, it's the opposite. So
if someone was out walking their dog and the dog, they notice blood and the dog's cut themselves, what should they maybe do? I know obviously there's nothing we can do in a Facebook Live that's going to replicate going on a proper first aid course, and that's obviously what we want people to do. But if someone was out walking their dog tomorrow and the dog cut their paw, what would you advise they do before they take it to the vet? Like what can they do sort of there and then to help?
If it's a minor cut, then it's just making the dog comfortable. You can certainly put a bandage on it, and that's one of the things that I really do at every canine first aid workshop. It's a very practical pressure bandage. I wouldn't bother cleaning it. I wouldn't bother washing it with water or anything like that. Just get the bandage on. Because we're going to do that. As soon as you get to the vets, we take the bandage off. We're going to be cleaning it. Don't put any human ointments on. I see this a lot on sort of social forums and things like that. So Germaline, Savlon, that kind of thing. Just no human prep at all on it. Sun cream's another one, no human prep, because it causes a barrier. It can actually attract bacteria. Just if you want to clean it with water, fine, just plain water if you want. But the main thing is to stop the bleeding, get it covered up, and then to the vets. Yeah.
Really good advice, really good advice. And so is there any other sort of common things you think that happen maybe out on walks and stuff like that to people, or sort of like, so obviously we've got cuts, is there any other kind of common injuries that you see a lot?
Yeah, we see a lot of where dogs have caught themselves on barbed wire, jumping over things, and twigs sticking out sticks. Broken sticks is another one. Getting caught in the skin and then ripping and tearing, causing punctures, things like that. Yeah, and the other one actually, which I've seen two of on social media today, is actually the stick stuck across the roof of the mouth. That's a really common one. It's just stuck in the carnassial teeth. And sometimes the dog looks like it's choking, but it's actually not. It's just a stick stuck between the carnassial teeth and the roof of the mouth. And if the owner's dog, if the dog will allow you to open its mouth, the owner's quite capable of pulling it out. Just very occasionally, it's really, really wedged, and we have to sedate the dog. But yeah, I've seen two of those on social media today. So yeah, it's really common. Really common. Stick injuries, really common.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't let my dogs anywhere near sticks if I can possibly help it when I'm out, because you just hear so many horror stories, don't you, from it? Yeah. I just noticed a little question here from Lisa. Lisa's one of my clan, and it's just an interesting one. I think it'd be good to get your take on it. So if the dog stands on glass and gets it in their paw, should you try and take the glass out, or should you just get the dog to the...
I would. It's actually a really common question there, and I get asked that on my first aid workshops as well, actually. But to be honest, glass is that sharp; it usually stays where it is,
right.
And the dog steps on it and has a cut, and then the glass stays where it is. If you do get a foreign object sticking out, I would be inclined to leave it, right. And then maybe go around it. But to be honest, I can't think when the last time I saw an actual piece of big chunk of glass was stuck in a dog's paw, because it's that sharp. It stays there. It stays where it is on the floor. Sometimes if we know it's been glass, we'll x-ray, because if you've got shards of glass, that's different, because they will stay in the paw. And pieces of glass actually show up as white on x-ray, so we can see it, and then we can have a bit of a poke around and get it out, when the dog's under anaesthetic. Yeah. So I'll be inclined, if it's something like a stick or something sharp like that, then I would leave it. Yeah.
Perfect. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, actually, because I think it's quite a seasonal time of year, is about ticks. So just, I guess, a bit of your advice on, well, actually, just some people might not be aware of exactly what ticks are. So kind of what ticks are, how to prevent them, and what to do if you think your dog's got a tick.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain areas of the country, and certainly Scotland's one where you're going to have a lot of ticks. I know every time I have a week in Fort William every year, and I always come back with a couple of ticks on Wisp, my dog, and occasionally on me, actually. So yeah, first of all, I would go to your vets and get some advice about tick treatments. There's some really good ones out there. Not everybody's keen to put lots of chemicals on the dogs, and I understand that. So maybe try and find some kind of alternative on some of the sort of natural remedy type Facebook pages. There is some, whether they work or not, I don't know. There's different views on that. I'm not a big one for putting lots of chemicals on the dog, but I do know when I'm going to that week in Scotland, I do put some prep on for her, because we have come home with ticks. So if you do find a tick, the main thing is, this is another thing we see on Facebook a lot, is people putting a picture of a tick on, and then 20 people telling them how to take it off. Some incorrect, some correct. But to be honest, you'd be better just pop into the vet, free nurse appointment, we'll take it off for you, because then we've got that responsibility. If you take it off, or you let somebody else take the tick off, and it leaves the head embedded or the teeth embedded, or that tick is carrying a disease, where are you going to come back on? At least if you've had the vet or the vet nurse has taken the tick out, you can ring them back and say, hang on, this doesn't look very nice, it's infected, or I'm a bit worried about the dog's health, that kind of thing. So I would think I always ring the vet, and they'll always show you how to take it off as well. So if you know how to take it off with a tick twister, is usually the best. The little it's like a little hook. Yeah, they're the best. And twist it off. They'll show you how to do it, and then you can do it yourself then. because you can do whatever you want to your own dog, you know. It's just when a third party does it, you've got to be really careful. The other one is that on social media, people tell it to put Vaseline on. You should never smother the tick because it regurgitates, and then if the tick is carrying any disease, it's going to regurgitate that blood with the disease back into the dog. Yeah.
No, that's great advice, because you do. I've seen that on Facebook and things like that about the Vaseline, and I'm like, no, don't do it.
I'll tell you what I saw last week. Somebody had put a picture of a little tiny cyst on their dog, and about 20 people told her it was a tick. So she went and pulled it off, and it was actually a little tiny skin tag. It wasn't a tick, and it was bleeding all over you. Yeah.
Always just go to the vet. that's
Well, usually nurse appointments are free, you know, just go and get a free nurse appointment. I mean, it's, you know, it's a no-brainer to me, you know. It's qualified nurses there, you know, just users, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. Sorry, Lisa, again, so there's a lot of questions, so I'm sorry if I'm missing some, guys, but Lisa was just asking, how would you know if your dog had ticks? Would they be scratching, or do you need to search your dog for them? That's a good question, because I think a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I found one on Wisp last year. She was shaking her head, and when I looked, and she's a Labrador, so it's not long coated, there was one behind her ear, so it was causing a bit of irritation. But I have found them on her where I would never have known. I've just looked through her. I always look through her when I come back from Scotland, because I always find one or two. So yeah, don't rely on the dog scratching the area. Always have a good search through as well. Yeah, they tend to go in the tender areas, so they tend to go around the face, behind the ears, inside of legs, and between the toes as well. When I do my work over in Thailand with the street dogs, we do an awful lot of looking for ticks, and they're on the feet. In between the toes is a really common one. Yeah. But the street dogs get them at hundreds at a time. You know, it's like yeah. And the toes is the one that people don't tend to check. Yeah.
I'm just seeing a question here, and it's actually quite a good one, and I'd love to pick your brain on this, because this is obviously all that we're hearing at the moment is about this Alabama rot. And I know that obviously I think a lot of the professionals, they don't know yet, but Claire's asking, what are the things to look out for regarding Alabama rot?
They think it's sort of an autoimmune related type issue, so that's why you're getting the skin lesions and the skin sloughing away and that kind of thing. So that's what you need to look out for. It's usually around the feet and the legs initially, and then around the face is another area. But nobody knows what it is, how it manifests, where it's come from. I think the best thing is just to keep an eye on social media and see where the pockets where it's been. Ask your vets if they've had any cases, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a mystery.
I think we're, touch wood, we've been quite lucky in Scotland so far that there doesn't seem to have been as many cases up here yet, but it does seem to be spreading, doesn't it? It seems to be coming further and further up north, so unfortunately it's probably only a matter of time.
So I think the advice will be to, you know, if you've been in a muddy area or woodland as well, is to wash the dogs down when you get back. That's the advice that I'm seeing over and over from vets.
Perfect. Karen is just asking, Karen, where's the best place to find the pulse on a dog?
Okay, the best one is the femoral artery. Okay, which is the main artery that feeds both back legs. So it splits in the pelvic region and it splits and then feeds the left and right hind leg. And it's found on the inside of the back leg, sort of midway on the femur. So that's why it's called the femoral artery. So it's kind of on the inside. You've got like two inside muscles of your back leg. It's kind of just down there. If you go too high into the leg pit, it disappears. If you go too far down, it disappears. So on a Labrador, there might be kind of about a good 2.5 inches where you can really feel that pulse. And you just put a slight bit of pressure, and you'll feel that pulse. And what you do, you count how many pulses you can feel in 15 seconds, times it by 4, and that will give you an accurate pulse rate. So it's a good idea to know what your pulse rate is normally at rest, what we call a resting pulse rate. So the dog's not been running about, so it's not, hot or anything like that. Resting pulse rate, so you know what's normal. So then you know when it's abnormal. And you know what's that breed as well. So a fit lab would be sort of 70 or 80. So if my lab was resting and her heart rate was 200, then I knew that something was wrong. Yeah. So it's knowing your own dog's heart rate.
That's fun. So everybody, after we come off this live, go and find your dog. There'll be people everywhere trying to check their dog's pulse and get the rest in. Fab. I'm just having a wee look. Lots of comments about the Alabama.
Everybody, say hello to everybody that said hello, and I've kind of missed it. So
there's so many comments going through. But yeah, the question I was wanting to ask as well. Obviously, I mean, today in Scotland, well, today in Edinburgh, the weather's been atrocious. It's been raining all day, but obviously we're in the middle of summer, and apart from today, it has been really, really hot. What would be your advice for dog owners in terms of trying to keep their dogs safe in the heat, whether it's in the house or in the garden or when they're out on a walk?
To me, as soon as it's warm, you don't really have to take the dog out, do you? We have this thing that we have to take the dog out for a walk. We don't just stay home, play games in the house, search games, scent games, or in the garden if you've got a coolish garden. And you've got to look at breeds as well. So if you're looking at your brachycephalic breed, anything with a flat face, you've got to be really careful because they can't breathe properly. They can't dissipate heat through panting correctly, so they do overheat really quickly. You've got to look at your sled breeds, your Malamutes, your Huskies, anything like that. Anything with a big double coat, just leave them at home. There's just no need.
And what sort of temperature do you think? I mean, I know it's very breed specific, so it's like a bit of a generalization. But what sort of temperature that we're getting to where you should really be starting to think like, actually, I need to leave my dog at home?
Probably kind of 19, 20 degrees, maybe. Yeah, even if it's just, we think us dogs are a degree warmer than us. So when we think it's like, oh, it's nice and pleasant out here, it's really hot for the dog. Yeah, so yeah, cool. Leave them home.
yeah, no, definitely, and keep them in the shade. And if you are out, like I always say, if you're going out, go out in the morning when it's still a bit cooler and try to keep them in the shade. And I know in Edinburgh we're lucky; we've got places like Corstorphine Hill and places like that where you can be, you can be in the wood and a lot more shaded. You don't need to be out and exposed to the heat as well. So, and so I'm just checking back, but going on to like first aid kits. So obviously the ideal is that it'd be great for all dog owners to go away on a first aid course for their dog. But in terms of like canine first aid kits, what do you think people should maybe have at home?
Well, I have in my kits, I have copious amounts of bandages because in any situation, the first thing you've got to address is bleeding. So just have a ton of bandages, different sizes for different occasions and different sized dogs. Pair of tweezers for pulling any stings or thorns and things like that out. Sterile water for washing eye injuries and things like that. Foil blanket for any situation where the dog might have fallen in water and is cold. You've got to think in winter. Dogs do get cold as well, especially these thin coated dogs, single coated dogs, that kind of thing. They can get cold really easy if they've dropped, fall in the canal or the river. So a foil blanket in your first aid kit. Thermometer for taking temperature. So if it's in a situation where the dog is overheating or is under temperature, then you can check that the temperature is raising or lowering at the right rate. Copious amount of bandages. And the other one that's missing out of a lot of these sort of pet first aid courses is actually a tourniquet. It's always missing out of these shop bought. I think a lot of these first aid kits, I think it's a human one and they've just slapped a pet first aid sticker on it because they've got arm triangles in, sticking plasters, safety pins, that kind of thing. And no tourniquet. Tourniquet, even just it just has to be a disposable tourniquet, really. I mean, I put disposable tourniquets in mine. Something you can take out your kit and put in your pocket before you go for work. Because that's the one thing that's going to save your dog, really. What else have I got in mind? Gauze pads. That's about it, actually. But then I've got a list of things that you can add to it, like slip lead, pair of tights. Actually, the legs off a pair of tights make really good emergency muzzles. You know, if you need to tie a dog's mouth up if it's aggressive because it's in there. So yeah, just tons of bandages. That's probably the main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Becky
I'll
just
have
said
a couple of pairs of gloves on me, it's like plastic gloves on me as well, because sometimes you have to deal with some pretty gross stuff.
Yeah.
Some Oh, actually, I was just thinking of a question actually, just while I scroll back these. When you were saying about taking the dog's temperature, how do you do that? I know that sounds like a really simple question, but
well, it is a rectal temperature, so it is up the bum. Yeah, all right. Dogs' bums are actually quite easy to take a temperature. Where cats are different. Cats, you've got to be really careful. First of all, they don't like it because they've got smaller little bottoms, but they've actually got two sphincters. So they've got two sphincters. So the first one goes in a little bit easy, then the second one's quite tight and a little bit tight. So you have to wait till it kind of pops through. So we never advise owners to actually take cat's temperature because you can actually damage the rectum there. But with dogs, it's fairly straightforward. As long as you put some lubrication on it, some cowhide jelly or something that's going to lubricate it. And always when you put it in, is just put it up the side wall of the rectum, because if you put it straight in, you'll just put it in poo, and then you'll not get a temperature. Actually, it's a funny story because one of my somebody that came to my course last year said she'd just used her mum's thermometer at the bathroom cabinet, used it on the dog, washed it and put it back, and never told her. I think that's hilarious. Those are the things that nurses like. That nurses like those gross things. Yeah, we think that's funny.
What temperature would you be worried at? You know, like if you were checking the temperature.
Well, a normal range of temperature for a dog is 38.3 to 38.7. That's Celsius. So most, or centigrade, most digital thermometers now are centigrade. So it's 38.3 to 38.7, all right? So if a dog's had a runabout, then yes, it might reach 39 and a half. You'd be worried once it kind of got to 40, 41, 42.
Right.
And when the temperature gets low, you'd be worried around about sort of 36 and a half, something like that. Yeah, that's why we keep a really close eye on temperature when we've got anaesthetized animals, because you drop temperature when you anesthetize. So we're always checking the temperature, and that's why we wrap them up in bubble wrap and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, fab. Thank you very much. There's a few laughing faces on that conversation, but I think it's quite important to know. Just having a look back. Guys, if you've got any other questions for Rachel, do type them up now. I'm just going to scroll back and see if we've missed anything. Maisie asked, what do you think about the quick fix powder in a first aid kit?
Yeah, that's fine. It won't do any harm. I know groomers use a lot of things like that, you know, when they're grooming and they might nick a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, won't do any harm. But it's when you get these big bleeds, it's not going to touch it. You know. Yeah.
Do vets offer emergency call-outs if you're out and about? Oh, Karen, by that do you mean if you're out walking your dog, would they come to where you are? I think that's what she means by that.
Yeah, it depends on the practice, you know, because I work in a couple of practices as a locum where we've only got one vet, and it's impossible to do that. But you might get a bigger practice that have got several vets or several branches, then they might be able to offer that service. Yeah. But I also work in my area. I work with a vet local to me that does now a house service. So she actually goes out to the houses for dogs and cats that are frightened of going to the vets. So she might be one that could be called in an emergency. Yeah. But you'd have to ring your individual practice and see and sort of plan ahead, you know, rather than think, right, I'm in a situation now, which vet shall I phone? This is something we talk about at the workshops as well, is be prepared, you know which vets specialise in what, you know.
Have all their numbers in your phone as well. I mean, it sounds really obvious, but make sure you've got them saved. And
yeah.
And so how would you, so obviously you never want to be in a situation where your dog has a really bad accident while you're out, but unfortunately sometimes it happens. How, if it's, especially if it's maybe a bigger dog, you know, if you've got a lab or something even bigger and they have quite a bad accident, and it's just you. How's the best way to sort of get them to the vets? Do you think? Do you have any tips in terms of that? And
yeah, it's difficult when the dog's big, and it's a question I always get asked is, what I've got a German Shepherd and I walk on my own, and it's really difficult to fix. I can't magic, a strong person to come and lift that dog back to your car. You've just got to kind of do your best. I mean, hopefully, it's not going to be a red hot day where you've just got maybe shorts and t-shirt, and maybe you might have a coat that you would then pull the dog onto and then drag it.
yeah.
I mean, we do. I've just actually started selling disposable. What's the word? Where you carry the dog.
Oh, like a. Oh God, I can't think of it. I don't know.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Like stretcher.
Stretcher, yeah. I've got these disposable stretchers, and they're about 20 quid, but they open up and they carry like up to 60 kilos. So those are quite good. Just they fold up kind of small, so it's great time in the back of the car. Yeah.
Maybe worth looking at if you've got a bigger dog, definitely, and an accident-prone dog as well. 'Cause some dogs do seem to be slightly more accident-prone than others, don't they?
Yeah.
Karen's asking a good question. Karen's just asking a good question. Can you take your dog to any vet, or do you have to register in advance? So say you're maybe somewhere, you're maybe not local and your vet's quite far away and something happens. Can you go anywhere?
Yes, in an emergency you can. Any vet has got a duty of care to treat in an emergency. Yes, so don't be turned away. The duty of care, when they pass their exams and they sign the declaration of being a veterinary surgeon, the main one is they have a duty of care. So if it's an emergency, you can go to any vets. Yeah.
Perfect. That's really good. That's good to know. Guys, any other questions? Do you have it while people are typing up their questions? Do you have any general tips or advice for people?
I think be prepared. And we were talking earlier about Canine First Aid workshops. If you're looking for one, I've got a real thing this year that I'm really trying to promote, going to a veterinary-led one, veterinary professional-led, whether it be a vet or a veterinary nurse, because we're in the perfect position to teach because we see it day in, day out, over and over again. And it's not regulated, like a lot of things in the pet business. Regulated. Anybody can actually start up teaching it, and which is what's happening. So you're getting lots of human first aid companies tutoring it, doing PowerPoints. I actually don't do PowerPoints. I have a thing that's death by PowerPoint with this particular subject. I might get everybody engaged and what have you. But there's a lot of human first aid companies. There's Train the Trainer. So you could go along. You could be a milkman and you could go along, pay £90, and then you're given a certificate and you can go out and teach Canine First Aid. But I'm quite passionate about it. Is that these people have never seen an injured dog. They've never seen things that we see. They've never resuscitated a dog. They've never done CPR. They've never been in the veterinary environment. Unless you've been there and you see these emergencies and you see, unfortunately, serious accidents or deceased dogs, we have to talk about it. You can't answer those very in-depth questions that people ask. I'd actually love to go along to one of these, like in Invisible, and like ask a question, because I could brick wall them like that. because most of them, they just don't have the practical experience. So
definitely. And so a lot of people are asking here, how can we get on one of your courses, Rachel? When are you coming to Scotland? And also in general, how can people find out like where you are and when you're running the courses so we can get on them?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 Facebook pages, so you can either add me as Rachel Bean, and think in brackets it's got qualified veterinary nurse. My other page is Canine First Aid Workshops Rachel Bean, so all the dates are on there. All right. So, but yeah, I'm going to try and get up to Scotland. My weekends are now absolutely rammed. I mentioned to you earlier, so it might be a weekend evening. I had a quick look at my diary. I know I've got 24th of July free. But July can be difficult because people are on holiday and stuff like that. So maybe we'll throw that date around and see if that's suitable. It'll be an evening. Or we could do one in the day and one in the evening, just to fit people in. But yeah, see.
For people that don't know, I've been trying to lure Rachel up to Edinburgh to come and do a first aid course. So we're hopefully, yeah. And as soon as we get a date set for that, if we manage to do it, guys, I'll put it on the page. So do make sure you've liked the Clan Canines page if you haven't already, because I'll make sure that I put it up and I'll put it as an event and what have you, so that you've all got the chance to book onto it, because it'll definitely be worth going to. So where am I going back? Gary McDonald said, now obviously maybe after this live is finished, is there any chance you could write up a list of what's best to have in the first aid kit and the temperature the dog should be, like we've discussed, just so that he could write it down somewhere?
Yeah. I'll copy and paste it. I'll put on there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Perfect. And Becky's asking, how long after a dog has eaten something that they shouldn't, which happens a lot, can you take them to the vets for induced vomiting?
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, it depends on what they've eaten. It's something that I would never advise somebody just on their own, just to then start making the dog sick. Some things we don't want them vomiting back up. Some things that could get stuck on the way back up. Again, always ring your vet. We can tell you. I mean, there was a case on Facebook last week that I saw where somebody had given the dog washing powder to make it sick, a puppy, and it burnt the puppy's throat on the way down, and when it threw up, it burnt all the trachea on the way up as well. Yeah, so that, I'm not sure where that puppy actually survived because of the way that the owner induced vomiting, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got that off social media. That's the one thing I see all the time. Oh, my dog's just eating chocolate. My dog's just eating paracetamol. Get 20, 30 people telling them how to make the dog sick. They're all in breach of the Veterinary Surgeons Act. It's dangerous. Just ring the vet. There's even the poisons line. Animal poisons line is now for pet owners. They can ring. They'll charge you, I think it's about £35, and they'll tell you whether you need to go to the vet or not. Yeah.
Do you know if that's a 24-hour line? Because invariably the dog's going to do it at a time where the vets is shut.
Yeah, it is a 24-hour line, and it's run by vets.
Oh, amazing. So, do you think you can maybe afterwards again pop the phone number in the comments? I think
I'll put the website. Yeah, I'll put the website on. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm just checking other questions. Oh, well, I guess. What would you do if you think your dog swallowed something that they shouldn't? For example, a chicken bone, but you're maybe not 100% sure if they actually have.
Yeah, with that one, again, I would ring the vet, and if the vet's worried, what we'll do, we'll x-ray them, because it will show up. Bone obviously shows up as white, so you'll be able to see it straight away in any part of the dog's digestive system. Yeah. Oh,
fantastic.
We find amazing things on x-rays, We won't be x-raying the dog for
What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen on an x-ray, if you're allowed to say it?
Well, we see, it's not that you find them on x-ray, you usually find them when you go into the stomach, but sometimes we might be x-raying the hips for a different reason, and we find that the dog's tummy is full of stones. That's a really common one, actually. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Been eating stones. Yeah, I'm the honest. Yeah.
Becky is asking, what's the most rewarding part of your job, Rachel?
Oh, I think probably these days the most rewarding part is actually using my vet nurse degree and doing other things like the first aid, but also it takes me abroad now. So I do a lot of work with the Soy Dog Foundation in Thailand, which is the street dog shelter. So they've got a brand new hospital. It's been open about 18 months now. And it's great because when I go there, they really value UK nurses because we're the best trained in the world. A lot of the other countries in the world don't have a high level of veterinary training, as in nurses. So they love it when the British vet nurses go over, and they stick me straight into messages coming through. Making me stop. Every time a message comes out, it freezes it. Well, yeah, they stick me in ICU, intensive care units, so that means I get to see things that I just don't see in this country, from diseases to injuries. So it's really great. And when they say, "Oh yeah, come into ICU," and I get to drip the dogs and blood test them and all that kind of thing. Yeah. In a foreign country like that, in an Asian country, it's the first time I did it, it was completely out of my comfort zone. But now it's It's really rewarding, really rewarding. So that's just something that's come off the back of being a qualified veterinary nurse. Yeah, being able to share, you know, give things back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I know, yeah, there's a lot of people saying here it's inspiring to see that and to hear that. Karen, sorry, is asking, because I think she asked it earlier on and I missed the question, so she's asked again, so I do apologise. I will just throw it in. Do you have any advice for an Addison dog? I struggle sometimes to handle her symptoms.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it's like Addison's covered all those type of problems. You get fluctuating symptoms, and it is, I understand, it's really difficult to manage. And I can't really say, without knowing the case, I'm not in a position to say yes, do this, do that, because that's a vet's job, really. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Fab. I think we've answered all the questions. I don't think I've missed any. Apologies if I have. Yeah, Rachel, thank you so much. I think there's been so much interaction, so everyone's obviously really enjoyed it. Guys, if you have, please hit the likes and the loves. And yeah, I think if you could pop those things on the comments afterwards, I think people would really appreciate it. But it's been so educational talking to you, and I really hope that we can sort that date and get you up to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I think there'll be
I'll
a lot
try and get that date. Yeah, brilliant, excellent.
Yeah, right. And we'll get you. But thank you so much. And guys, just before you disappear, just to let you know that next week, same time, Monday, 7:30, I'm going to be talking to Karen Hill, who's a top dog stylist. She's down in Bakewell and runs the dog house. So if you're after any grooming tips, make sure you're here next week. But thank you so much. And everyone's just saying thank you, Rachel. So yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully we'll see you up in Edinburgh very soon.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.